Meet Josh. He's smart, successful, and wants to be a doctor. This is Laura, his loving wife. She's always been his #1 fan, and she's excited for his new career. This isn't an easy life. Medical training is hard on the best of couples. Relationships are tough. Being married to a doctor is not always as romantic as it sounds. And sometimes it feels like a healthy relationship and a successful medical career just don't go together. But after 16 years of marriage, Laura's learned a few things about navigating that balance. Married to Doctors is a podcast for you, the supporting spouses of physicians. It's about you, and it features real-life experiences from other listeners like you. We strive to make successful homes happier. You'll hear experts discuss topics relevant to the demanding job of being a doctor, as well as the demanding job of being married to one. And you'll hear true stories of others who are going through the same things you are. For details on how to listen, go to marriedtodoctors.com.
با درود به شما بینندگان عزیز و گرامی به برنامه مامتاک مادر و کودک خوش آمدید. در برنامه امروز مبحث بسیار مهمی در رابطه با چارچوب و دینامیستی که در خانواده ها به وجود میاد برای مشاغل مختلف و به اصطلاح چگونه زندگی ها امروز از طریق تکنولوژی به دهکده های کوچیک یا اون ویلج های به قول معروف کوچیکی تبدیل شده که ما با گفتمان هایی که داریم، با کامیونیکیشن هایی که با هم داریم، این بحث ها و صحبت ها و شیوه های رفتاری، اجتماعی، احساسی، عاطفی و غیره رو با هم دیگه میتونیم سهیم باشیم و شیر بکنیم. امروز در برنامه مامتاک بسیار بسیار خوشحال هستم که خانم لارا که به اصطلاح گوینده پادکست بسیار به اصطلاح پاپولر Married to Doctors و این کامیونیتی و جامعه‌ای که آنلاین به وجود اومده و غیره، ایشون رو در برنامه مامتاک امروز داریم و بحثمون رو به زبان انگلیسی با خانم لارا شروع می‌کنیم. Laura, dear, welcome to MomTalk. It's such a pleasure to have you on MomTalk. I am such a big fan of your podcast, Married to Doctors, and I think it's just so wonderful and brilliant that you've thought of bringing this conversation, this very important conversation of sharing our lifestyles and life challenges to such wonderful hub where we can tune in and share and learn from each other. Thank you for being on MomTalk today.
Thank you for having me. Very happy to be here.
Awesome. So tell us what inspired you to start this podcast.
My own misery. As many of us are married to doctors, we know and understand that life is not always as glamorous as it sounds. And what was interesting for me, the background that I grew up in, I was never around physicians, and I kind of had this very shallow and idealistic idea of what it would be like to be married to a doctor. And then as we started down the road, I found that it's actually a very difficult and challenging path to take, and it's different and challenging in ways that I didn't expect. And I've now been married for 16, almost 17 years, and my husband is a surgeon. And during this time, as I've talked to other women and other moms, and the dads and the men as well that are married to physicians, a lot of us face the same issues. A lot of us face resentment, loneliness, six-figure debt. You know, we have a lot of things that are quite difficult to deal with. And I also find that we sometimes are afraid to talk about them because we feel like we might be judged. Oh, well, you married a doctor, who are you to complain? You know, and so it's kind of almost like we can't talk about what we're really feeling. And so I wanted to build a community where we could more openly discuss some of these challenges.
Great, and you had me on your show, a while ago, and I remember the conversation, the Mom Talk conversation I had with you was really very comfortable. It was healing, and I felt a lot of empathy, and I felt a deep connection to you, as well as having this opportunity to share with your audience and your listeners. So thank you for providing that community, that online community to those of us who are, engaging and wanting to share our narratives.
Oh, well, you're welcome. It was so fun having you on, and I really respect the work that you do in peace learning. And as soon as I asked you a question about, well, what's it like in your family, and you said, well, you just have to kind of let go of some expectations. And it was funny because I just knew you were going to have this amazing answer. But a lot of us, again, as I said, there's a certain dynamic there, particularly as we're both married to surgeons, where the demand is so high for their career that we have to look at our lives and kind of like reevaluate what that relationship will look like.
That's right. And I know that it's been very peaceful. It's been a peace learning experience to have a growth mindset on this journey. I've been able to enjoy this journey a lot more by intentionally knowing in my heart that it's all about growing together, thriving together, learning from our mistakes, and allowing for some flexibility to readjust some of those expectations, and really practicing it on a daily basis. I think modeling it, dancing in the relationship, as there's so many challenges and so many obstacles and so many moments where as wives or as husbands, we are experiencing the loneliness, or we are experiencing not having that continuous heart-warming, conversation or warm-heartedness. And so allowing space there to grow from it and to have this inside-out peace learning growth experience has really been very healing and has helped me keep my sanity.
Oh, yeah. It's absolutely necessary that we consciously decide how we're going to show up in our relationships. And that's true for anyone, not just those that are married to doctors, obviously. All of us have to decide, what kind of partner do we want to be and how are we going to show up? Because we learn pretty quickly that we don't get to control our partner, right? So it's up to us and how do we want to be? How do we want to respond? How do we want to act in a certain situation? And when we talk about peace, I think a lot of times people think peace is, it's passive. I'll just, let them have what they want and I'll just be passive. But I don't think that works very well. If we really want peace in our own hearts, in our own relationships, we have to be active, in working towards that peace, and active in doing things that are going to nurture that relationship.
Yes, absolutely. And it's a mindset, isn't it? I think it's a mindset in which you are reminding yourself at every step of the journey that how do I bring more peace into this communication, even when it's so volatile and it's so, intense. Even when there are high conflicts between siblings. We have 3 kids, and I can't wait to hear about your parenting challenges and how you navigate through some of those intense moments, or some of those moments when there's sibling conflict and intensity. But I know for me, it's just, finding that zone where you allow for growth and struggling and suffering that is just human nature, but also finding balance in communicating how we're going to thrive together as a family, reminding each other that we are a family, we're going to help each other get through this. And just this morning, I had a moment with my little one when her ponytail was just not the right way, and she was just so frustrated, and she was experiencing a lot of intensity and just really mad. And I said, well, let's just take a break, let's take some deep breaths. And I had to do things a little differently, and making shifts in our routines, so that we can have those downtimes to repair and apologize, and take a moment to pause and bring more peace and balance into that relationship.
Yeah, that's really good. I know as a mom of 5 boys, it's always a little bit more of a rough house than I might like. And they're often, they're playing and they're having fun until a point, and then it gets, more rough where they're actually kind of being mean to each other or they're being a little too physical.
Yeah.
And I have really had to work on my mindset with this because it's very easy for me to say, well, a good mom
Yes.
never let her kids fight. Children shouldn't fight.
Right.
I'm obviously failing as a parent if my kids are in a fight. And what I've had to do is kind of take a step back and watch the situation and say, it's kind of humorous the way that they're like best friends and enemies all at once. And if I can take a step back and see the bigger picture, then I don't get caught up so much in the moment. And I also am not so quick to judge myself. Like I'm just a failure of a mother because the kids are not getting along right now. I can take a step back, look at it with a touch of humor and a little bit of grace to myself and say, okay, and then if I can keep myself centered, it's so much easier to then go deal with the kids, right? Because if I'm upset and I feel like a failure, then, nothing they do is going to be right either.
Yes, very good reminder to parents in this PeaceLearning parenting journey to take those pauses, to reflect, have some self-reflection, as well as, like you said, just remove ourselves from this situation and some of our own projections and allow the humor of it to take place, as well as, I think being judgy is a big part of our parenting identity, especially our generation. I think we are a little too judgy of ourselves and don't practice self-compassion as much as perhaps 3 generations ago. So it is a good reminder to practice self-compassion, to be mindful, and to allow for that moment to just play it out and let the growth happen. And oftentimes some of those struggles or fights or conflicts are to bring more intimacy to the relationship. Oftentimes that's how kids learn, through working through conflict and how they can come alongside each other next time. And it's growing pain. And to remind ourselves to lower our expectations. It doesn't have to be peaceful all the time. That is why it's called PeaceLearning and not just peaceful, because it's a learning experience and we're learning together. I'm learning from you guys as well as you guys learning from me, and it's interactive, and it takes 2 to cultivate peace. So it is a very refreshing reminder what you're talking about, to self-reflect, to pause, to not take it so seriously. And a mother of 5 boys, wow, that's incredible.
It's a lot of fun. It definitely sets us up to learn a lot about peace, like you said, because they'll get in these conflicts, and then that's when you can come in as a mom and really shine.
Yes.
I think if you tell yourself, oh, well, my kids should never fight, and then I'll be a good mom, it's not very practical, right? So you say, okay, the assumption is with 5 kids in the house, there's going to be conflict. And then where you as a mom get to come in and really shine, not that I do shine most of the time, where we can try to exercise this idea of peace, is that how are we resolving it? How are we then getting rid of the contention and helping the boys to reconcile themselves to each other again? And that's where you can really have that increase of love in your home, is after the issue, is seeing them come back together and become best brothers again.
Yeah. I find it helpful to take on more of a narrative approach in some of those situations, to share some of my own struggles with my own sibling, growing up, and also some of the stories that my mom and my grandmother shared intergenerationally. I think storytelling is such a nice, peaceful way to share experiences that are familiar, but also to come up with solutions, to be solution focused, and kind of remove the heat of the conflict or the intensity from the situation. Because oftentimes, the focus is on fairness. You know, it's not fair. You hear siblings say this all the time, but mom, but dad, that's not fair, you know, or he hit me or she hit me. And so when the focus is on the aggression and the aggressive behavior and the pain and the suffering and justice and fairness, it becomes much more of a red zone, you know, the brain being more in a red zone, in a fight or flight state, where learning is probably least likely to occur. Where if we could sort of cultivate that peaceful green zone brain, which is the receptive brain, where, you know, kids are actually learning, being receptive, coming up with solutions, which comes up, you can enhance it, increase it through storytelling. Children are very, very receptive to storytelling. Then the brain opens up for learning. And then children oftentimes on their own, or kids on their own, or teenagers on their own, can make those parallel learning experiences in their minds. And then you can, you know, join stories and come up with creative ways for them to also engage in the solution creation process. So it's great that you have boys of different, you know, age range, different developmental stages in their age and their development, where you can create those stories and build on those stories together.
Yeah, I think that's really great advice, you know, to share stories with them. And I find that sometimes it's better to separate them for a time and maybe share stories with them individually.
Yes.
Let them think through kind of the point that you're trying to make. Right. And then, as you said, that encourages them to come up with solutions. And that's the best feeling ever, is when they then on their own start to resolve things on their own accord. And as parents, it's so easy to say, oh my gosh, you know, I want them to say you're sorry right in this moment. Well, they don't feel it. It's not sincere.
No.
The contention is still there. And so much better to, when we can, take an extra minute, separate them, and then let them resolve the conflict on their own in their own creative ways.
Awesome. I'm going to take a little break here and translate some of our conversation in Farsi for our Farsi-speaking audience. And then we will continue our conversation back in English. دوستان، با خانم لارا که پادکست Married to Doctors رو به اصطلاح درست کردن برای کامیونیتی آنلاین صحبت میکنم. ایشون خودشون شوهرشون جراح هستن و بیش از نزدیک به 20 سال به اصطلاح در زناشویی هستن، یعنی ازدواج کردن و 5 فرزند دارن، 5 پسر دارن و در رابطه با زندگی صحبت‌های مادرانه، مامتاکی که با هم داریم، اینکه بچه‌ها چجوری با هم بازی میکنن، چجوری در اوقاتی که بازی میکنن کانفلیکت یا تنش تجربه میکنن، با هم دیگه دعوا میکنن، چجوری مادری و پدری شیوه تو هم با آموزش صلح چی هستش در این رابطه. و ایشون مطرح میکنن که خیلی از اوقات در این موارد من دوست دارم که پسرها رو جدا میکنم از هم و به جای اینکه بخوام نصیحت بکنم یا دعوا بکنم یا بگم تو این کارو کردی، تو این کارو بد کردی، تو این کارو اشتباه کردی، میگم که هر کی بره تو اتاق خودش یا جداشون میکنم. بعد دونه دونه با اونها از طریق گفتمان، از طریق صحبت کردن و با آرامش اونها رو کمک میکنم که درباره اتفاقی که افتاد یا دعوایی که داشتن یا کانفلیکتی که تجربه کردن حالا توضیح بدن، قصهشو بگن، درد و دل بکنن به قول ما. و تو این درد و دلها شیوه های بهتری برای اینکه دفعه بعد این کانفلیکت ها و این تنش ها اتفاق نیفته یا اینکه چجوری میتونن انتخاب و تصمیم گیری بهتری در آینده داشته باشن، تک تک با اونها این گفتمان ها رو دارن. برای همین در شیوه مادری و پدری PeaceLearning Parenting خیلی مهمه که شما وقت بذارین، وقت گفتمان داشته باشین و هول یا به قول معروف با عجله نخواهین که سریع به اصطلاح رد بکنین یا با دعوا و یک تند صحبت کردن و یک چشقره و داد و بیداد فکر کنین که دعوای بچه ها رو حل کردین و به اصطلاح مادری پدری کردین. اون شیوه روش صلح آمیز یا روشی نیست که صلح رو در خانواده پرورش بده. این صحبتایی که خانم لارا دارن میکنن و میگن که من خودم دیدم که وقتی زندگی خودم ازدواج کردن با یک جراح چه مشکلات و چه تنش‌ها و چه چالش‌هایی داره، خواستم که با دیگران، با خانواده‌های دیگه که با پزشک ازدواج کردن، خانم دکترا به قول ما که این کامیونیتی خانم دکترا خیلی هم بزرگ هستش، به جای اون درد و دل‌های تلفنی یا خودمونی این پادکست رو به وجود آوردم که بتونم مصاحبه بکنم و صحبت بکنم و گفتمان داشته باشم با این خانم دکترای عزیز که مشکلات و چالنج‌ها و چالش‌های خودشونو دارن و این چالنج‌ها و چالش‌ها سهیم هستیم باهاش. بنابراین یکی از این مشکلات حضور نداشتن پزشکان یا جراحان در چارچوب خانوادگی و زناشوییه، به خاطر اینکه خب کار زیادی دارن و مشغولن و دائم به اصطلاح بیمارستان هستن، آن کال هستن و غیره. و این نمونه ای از چالش هایی که هستش رو ایشون دونه دونه این چالش ها رو ایدنتیفای کردن، مشخص کردن و با این افرادی که این مشکل ها رو به خوبی روبرو میشن باش حل میکنن و خانوادهشون به خوبی رشد داره میکنه، پرورش پیدا میکنه و developmentally به اصطلاح سالم هستن، اینا رو سهیم هستن با پادکستشون. پادکست ایشون marriedtodoctors.com و یا این وبسایتشون هستش، تارنماش هست و شما میتونین برین و جوین بکنین. لزوما نباید جزوی از این کامیونیتی پزشکان باشین، میتونین به اصطلاح از هر رشته‌ای که هستین جوین بکنین و بیاموزین و بدونین که بعضی از این مشکلات در اصل بین پروفشنالای دیگه هم خیلی شباهت داره. بنابراین حتما جوین بکنین. یکی از مصاحبه ها خود من هستم که در رابطه با زندگی خودم خیلی به اصطلاح با دل باز و با بدون فیلتر به قول معروف صحبت کردم و شیر کردم زندگی خودم و زناشویی و به اصطلاح شیوه مادری و پدری و غیره. و خوشحال هستم که امروز مامتاک با لورا دارم که میتونیم با شما هم این گفتمان رو سهیم باشیم. Laura, back to our conversation in English. I tried my best to recap and summarize our conversation in Farsi. We do have a larger Farsi-speaking audience all the way listening and tuning in from the Middle East with us. So I just invited everyone to join your podcast and community. What's the best way for them to connect with you? And let's say they want to start their own community in the Middle East. What do you recommend?
I like in person personally. So I love to get together with real in the flesh people that I can talk to and relate to. But I find that sometimes those people are limited. There's only so many people married to doctors. There's only so many people available, to maybe go have lunch with. And so I do have my Facebook page. I do have my website. I think a great way to connect is just to start talking about it. Mm-hmm. It's so hard sometimes with the doctor-wife stereotypes mm-hmm. to start the conversation. Mm-hmm. And what I have found in starting the podcast and the conversation is many people have reached out to me in email or through social media and said, oh my gosh, finally a resource for physician spouses, finally someone wanting to talk about these subjects. And some of the most popular episodes have been on things like resentment towards your spouse's career, which is really hard to admit because on one hand, their biggest fan. You know, you want their success as much as anyone, and you've worked very hard for their success and for your family's success. But it sometimes comes at a sacrifice. Many physician spouses give up jobs. They move multiple times. They maybe live away from family. And then they struggle with that balance of, you know, how can I be at peace when I feel like I've made these sacrifices? My spouse is getting to shine and I'm kind of, you know, second place. And that can be hard for a lot of physician spouses.
Very, very important conversation indeed. So if you are watching from the Middle East and you're interested in joining this community, you can visit marriedtodoctors.com. You can email Laura directly. All the information is on the website. If we can show the website for a second so you guys can visually see how to connect with Laura. So there is the website. Here you have it. There is the website, Married to Doctors, and it is a podcast. You can download or listen on to the podcast. It's also being shared on social media, like Laura said, on Facebook. There's my interview, How to Cultivate Peace in the Family, and the PeaceLearning Parenting, and so many wonderful topics. I've listened to a few, and I love the conversations, like you said, how to cope with managing, finding balance, you know, in the parenting role, as well as just intimacy, you know, the romance and communication, and how to cultivate better peaceful communication in the family so that everyone's feeling seen and heard and so forth. And also, I think what we also learn from this is the courage of you, Laura, for and leadership to take a position to create something, and all the hard work that goes into it. You know, I know how hard it is to create these shows, to edit them. You do a really wonderful job in keeping it very professional, uploading and creating this wonderful free service to the community that I personally am very, very grateful to you. And definitely your leadership is one of my favorite PeaceLearning leaderships in cultivating peace, bringing awareness. I know awareness is huge, so when we listen to each other, when we are, you know, experiencing warm-heartedness because I just heard your story and I relate to it, and I feel that, oh my gosh, I can relate, I share that same story, and our children are going through similar struggles and so forth. That is bringing more peace and leadership into our community. So thank you for that service to our community.
Oh, thank you so much. I really had three main goals when I started it, which one was to build community, one was to hear each other's stories, because as you were talking earlier about how sharing stories with our children helps, I think sharing stories with other adults helps as well. Yes. So I wanted to share our stories. So many of my guests are physician spouses, but they're not necessarily experts. And then the third piece was to seek solutions from experts. And so I've had, you know, different people with different accolades on the show as well. So those were the three main ways that I wanted to help the physician spouses.
That's great. And are you thinking about having sort of a youth division where the children also can be heard, and, you know, the especially, you know, the teenagers and the youth, like college students, can have a voice in the community?
So it's funny you ask that. My son is actually going to be on this show next month.
Yay!
My oldest. My oldest is 14, and he's been with us this entire journey. So he'll be on the show, and then we'll see, you know, if we do some more with younger guests.
That's awesome. I love the integration. I think it's so important when we're having these Mom Talk conversations and cultivating peace that we include the youth especially and the youth leadership, because it is key to our success. And so thank you for doing that. Thank you for integrating technology. I know you're very busy in creating sort of those links across technology, so your social media and online and YouTube, and it takes time. So for those parents who are putting in the time to share their stories, to create these, I think, online villages, right? It takes a village. That's our village. You have created a village there where I love to go to, and just while I'm driving, listen to your podcast, listen to the conversations, listen to the stories, and then feel elevated, feel like, oh, I was just inspired by that talk. And it is wonderful to have that opportunity. So thank you for that, Laura.
Oh, thank you. I'm so glad you're enjoying it.
Yes. Let's move on to another topic, which is sort of managing finances. You mentioned the debt, the grad students or physicians, or coming out of residency and school with a lot of debt. What are some of the advices or tips that you can share with our audience? Because we do have a young audience, sometimes young parents who are watching, and sometimes they're physicians and they're out of school. Can you share some of those advices or guide them to come to your site so that they can listen to an interview and learn some skills that will help them manage their money better?
Yeah, so on the podcast, I've had a couple of great interviews. One was specifically about student loans, and I kind of went down to the basics, basic definitions. Sometimes people ask simple questions like, well, what does refinance mean, right? And so I wanted my show to be kind of that particular episode anyway, to be kind of a starting point. And so you can look for that episode on student loans. You can also look for an episode about financial planning, which was a question about, do we need a financial planner? When do we need a financial planner? I know a lot of times as physicians, we don't, or either ourselves if we're the physician or our spouse if they're the physician, they don't get a lot of education in that department, and all of a sudden it's almost like they have a target on their back. Every banker, every finance person wants to talk to you, and you can be led astray very quickly, and you can end up paying extremely high fees for financial advisors that you don't need to pay. And so I did one about that, just because I wanted people to be aware of kind of what to look for in a financial planner. On a personal level, when you are dealing with your actual personal finances, I think one of the most important things to do, and it sounds so basic and boring, but it really is budgeting. And I actually wrote a piece called The Romantic Side of Budgeting, which discussed why, when you are on the same page financially with your spouse, how it improves your relationship, and how much the whole money issue can divide a wedge between you. And so it's a very, very important topic. I feel like couples are much closer when they have the money worked out. And it really doesn't matter the size of the budget, because physician budgets fluctuate. Some people are 6 figures in debt, right? And then other physicians are making, 6 or 7, even 7 figures at times. And so there's a huge variety, and it's not so much how much you're making, it's more about your communication about it, and where is it going, and do you both understand it, and are you both happy with what you're doing with the money?
Very, very important PeaceLearning piece. And I know, in working with some of the Iranian American families in our community, sometimes you have sort of this dynamic between couples where the males are more in charge of the finances, coming from a more patriarchal, tradition or cultural background. And sometimes what that does, the more traditional gender role types, it creates a disconnect with the communication, and for the couples to be having that healthy, open communication about money and budgeting and money management. So it is a very important conversation, and also one that can be impacted by cultural differences and belief systems. And so what we see is, like you said, Laura, the more healthier the open communication is, where the partners are feeling heard and understand and are on the same page about managing their finances, the more peace and peace learning and happiness really you experience in the family. And it goes beyond just the couple. It also moves on to the children, the kids, and how those communication lines are open or closed. And so if you have, if you come from a cultural heritage where there's a lot of secrecy, a lot of like closed, barriers to communication, or not having an open communication, then the topic of money becomes a huge area of conflict for many of these families. And I've seen just intense conflict leading to divorces and a lot of chaos in families. And also when you add the extended family members' involvement with the finances, which is very, very common in our culture and community, it makes it even more complicated and conflictual.
Yeah, definitely. Finances and money issues are one of the number one things that families will fight over and will cause contention in families. And that's why I think it's so important that we have those discussions, that we make certain basic guidelines and rules between ourselves as a married couple, of what we're willing to do and how we're willing to help. And it sounds silly, but your relationship will improve. Even your romantic relationship will improve as you get along better and better financially.
Yep. Yes, I've seen this personally in my practice and professionally and in all dimensions. So money and in-laws and sort of the sex conversation, intimacy, romance, those are really hot topics of cultivating peace or peace learning. And if we can be open or have a growth mindset and learning from it and developing better health or wellness and improving sort of those dimensions in our lives, then we're bringing more peace into the world, inside and out.
Yes, definitely. In fact, in that article, I said that having a budget could improve your sex life.
Yep, yeah. Right on.
But I had to laugh.
You're right on. Yep.
For men that want to control all of that, they might consider, is me controlling all of this money affecting our, our romance and our sex life? And it very well could be, because there is a disconnect. And I think anytime we can reach out in understanding with our partner, it's going to improve our relationship on many levels.
Yeah, yeah. Wonderful. Well, very, very important conversation and talk about money. So we talked about sibling relationships. We talked about fiscal literacy. And now let's talk about intimacy. Let's talk about romance. How do you keep romance sort of vibrant in your relationship or your community, the stories that you've listened to? I don't want to get personal, but I'm dying to know, how do we keep romance alive besides the money talk? Because there's no time. There's no time.
Yeah. So, everybody dreams of, just being so romanced, throughout their marriage. And so how do you actually do that? I think it's important to remember that our spouses can't really do that for us. So of course, if they bring us flowers or they take us on a date, we might feel good. But how many people have been given flowers and they're still mad? Or how many people have been taken on a date and they're upset? And we know of couples that are on wonderful, expensive vacations, and yet they're fighting on the vacation, you know, in that beautiful place.
Yeah.
And that's always really sad. So what we need to do, I think, is it goes to the basics that don't cost any money and oftentimes don't even take that much time. For me, one of the biggest things has been to learn to give my husband the benefit of the doubt. And that has gone really far. That was a piece of advice I heard years ago, and it has saved our marriage a few different times, I'm sure of it. Just trying to give my husband the benefit of the doubt. So, you know, I was thinking the evening might look like this, and yet it looks like something completely different. You know, does that make my husband a jerk or a bad guy, or he's insensitive, or he doesn't love me? You know, your mind can very quickly go down a rabbit hole. And it's so important, I think, to take a pause and to give our husbands the benefit of the doubt. I know one time Josh came home and I was at the end of my day. We had sick kids, and I was very frustrated that once again his work demands had kept him from the family. And I just I said something kind of mean, something I shouldn't have said, and he just looked at me and said, "I wanted to be home too."
Oh.
Yeah. And then, of course, you know, that caused me to pause. And since then, I always try to remember and keep that in mind. You know, give them the benefit of the doubt. They would like to be at the birthday party, but they can't, you know, or they would have liked to have made that band concert, but they didn't get there until, you know, the very end or whatever, you know, and you just try to be a little more kind and generous with that.
And have empathy and understanding that they're in a profession where they have to prioritize and heal and help others and care for others. And I totally get it. And that comment just made me like tear up. That's so sweet. And the connection that you had with him, and you know, in that moment. And that's empathy. I think, you know, it's nice to be reminded of those moments. But it's also tough. It is also, you know, a journey that requires a lot of patience, a lot of giving. And I also relate to the part of you where you're feeling just exhausted, and I've been there, and it's not fun. But, you know, we are conscious, and we're conscious of the relationship and the marriage, and I think that's what makes it challenging and worthwhile, and it's a peace learning journey.
Yeah, it's definitely a journey, and I'm always amazed at how much I still have to learn and to grow. And just when I think, oh, I'm doing good. Look, I went a whole couple days without having bad feelings towards this job. It's me again. It's me again. My goal is to go a whole week. I don't know how many years of marriage it will take to get to a full week, because it is a demanding. It does ask a lot of us as physician spouses. But it can give us much too. And I know for me, seeing my husband be successful and have joy in his profession has meant a lot to me. At one point, my husband actually went into a different field of medicine. He left surgery for a time because he felt that it would be better for the family. And during that time, we both really became converted to the idea that he was in fact supposed to be a surgeon, and that was his mission in life. And so that has made a big difference for me personally too, to know that he should be a surgeon, and that he can be at the hospital, and it's easy for me to think he should be home, the kids are little, they never see their dad. But those thoughts don't serve me very well. So when I think, no, you know what, he's where he's supposed to be, I feel so much better when I think that, right?
Yeah.
So it's a lot of thought work.
Yeah. I love that. I love your positivity. I love your optimism. I love that you're focused on growth and supporting your family, cultivating peace in your family, but also you're sharing your inside peace with others, and you've created this wonderful podcast, Married to Doctors, and this online community where we can join, we can hold hands and listen in and tune in, and then feel seen and heard, and experience empathy, and then bring that empathy back home where we can cultivate more peace and continue to enjoy this peace learning journey together. Thank you so much. Thank you for being on Mom Talk.
And thank you. This has been a wonderful experience.
Yeah, thank you for sharing my story. You know, I had a lot of fun sharing my story, and also opening up in a very raw, vulnerable way with your audience. So thank you for that opportunity.
Absolutely. It's gotten great feedback. I think a lot of people really wanted to hear more about what we can do to cultivate peace in our homes and our families, and you did such a great job. So thank you.
Thank you, Laura. So have a great week, everyone. I know دوستان میدونم که در سال جدید هستیم، سال به اصطلاح نو، و این گفتمان هایی که داریم در رابطه با پرورش صلح در خانواده همیشه بسیار بسیار مهمه برای آوردن به اصطلاح شیوه های بهتر و جدیدتری که در خانواده میتونه صلح رو پرورش بده. همیشه گفتمان داشتن با دوستان، مادران، گفتگوهای مادرانه در این سفر مادرانه‌ای که با هم سهیم هستیم، و یا مادر و پدر به اصطلاح در این سفر صلح آمیز که قرار بچه هامون کمک بکنن که ما از اونها یاد بگیریم و اونها از ما، و همواره هر روزه یک چیز جدیدی بیاموزیم از همدیگه، به همدیگه با شیوه های صلح آموز صحبت بکنیم، گفتمان داشته باشیم و بعد سهیم باشیم و با همدیگه درد و دلهایی رو که قرار کمک بکنه ما رو در رشدمون، نه اون صحبت‌های منفی یا گفتمان‌هایی که به اصطلاح بیشتر مثل جنبه گاسپ داره، جنبه پچ پچ کردن داره، اونا رو بذاریم کنار، بریم سراغ گفتمان‌هایی که واقعا دلمون رو باز میکنه، به ما میآموزه، شادی برامون میاره و کمک میکنه که زندگی بهتری، زندگی توأم با صلح بیشتری داشته باشیم از درون و بیرون. و این همش از اینجا میاد که ما کامیونیتی که برای خودمون به وجود میاریم کامیونیتی باشه که این افراد درش سهیم باشن و فضا داشته باشن و درد و دل و گفتمان و دوستی ها و روابطمون برای پرورش صلح انتخاب بکنیم و پیش ببریم. برای شما در این سال جدید آرزوی صلح بیشتر و صفا دارم و تا هفته آینده روز و روزگار خوش و خدا نگهدار.